A very warm welcome to those of you who've joined us, who just joined us. Hello, Sonia. Lovely to see you. And hello to everybody. Greetings to everyone. I know that this has been the holiday Thanksgiving weekend, and I hope it's been a lovely and safe and happy one. And as you can probably see from the sunlight behind me, you're on the edge of winter and we're on the edge of summer. So forgive me also if you can hear in the background any whirring noises. Here in South Africa, it seems to be the new normal that we have load shedding. So I officially have no electricity from the grid for the next 2 hours, but we have a little generator that's running in the side. So if you hear that, that's what that is. But needless to say, welcome on this very special day. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for being part of a bookend, of the first bookend of 2 services that start and almost finish Advent this year. So today, as promised, we're going to be honoring and celebrating and thinking about what Advent is in its own right, but also what it can mean to us as individuals and as a community. And today, of course, is the beginning of the Christian tradition of Advent. And if it, in Latin, of course, ad meaning to, and vent, come, so to come, and placing ourselves like a bridge between what is past and what is yet to be. And we are the torchbearers. The flame was passed to us, and we will pass it on. And we are in the time when the nights are now at their longest in the Northern Hemisphere. The light is waning, and a remembrance that hope is not just a noun, but it's also a verb. And what hope will be for the returning of that light. And this is now a time of going within, and a time of circumspection, a time of waiting and expectancy, and a time remembering that unto us, this is given, the divine with us. And I wanted to share with you before we do the reading, and Dr. Terry Collerton has very generously agreed to share a beautiful poem with us, with me. We're going to read it together. And I wanted to touch upon the essence of Advent. When I was growing up, it always meant to me a very large box of chocolates, which I was told as a child you could only open one a day. And of course, my sister and I went to great lengths to try to replace the chocolate with other small things inside the window, so it still looked like there might still be chocolate inside, but of course we'd gone all our way through, all the way to the 25th of December. And Advent for me had that childhood memory. But as I grew as into an adult and into my spirituality, I began to see that the image of the window is a very powerful one. And later on, I'm going to share something with you about a journey that hopefully we can take together in the next few weeks. But that sense that in this time of reflection, it is an opening, window by window, day by day. Whatever that window may mean, whether it's the letting in or the letting out, or perhaps both. And that duality between the journey of the interior with the call to the exterior, to expansiveness, and a time gradually, carefully, mindfully of deep reflection. And of course, Advent is where we also get the word adventure. And with that in mind, I've chosen the reading today. It's a poem by the contemporary and beautiful, powerful, mystical writer. His name is David White. And as you'll see, if you listen to the words, and we're going to post them as well, so you can read along with us, but you'll see that the call, the adventure, the call is to the leaving of an island, which I'll unpack with you later on. But for the moment, if you can, if it's in the chat box, let's read it together. And as I said, Dr. Terry, thank you so much. You're going to read the first part of it with us. And in the spirit of the meditation, to allow the words to really wash over you and land with you where they need to. Thank you, Terry.
It must have been the slant of the light, the sheer cross grain of rain against the summer sun. The way the island appeared gifted out of the gleam and the depth of distance, so that when you turn to look again, the send of the sea had carried you on, under the headland and into the waiting harbor.
And after the pilgrim lanes and the ruined chapel, the lads singing beneath the window, and the corncrake calling from a corner of a field. After the gull cries and the sea hush at the back of the island. It was the way, standing still or looking out, walking, or even talking with others in the evening bar, holding your drink and laughing with the rest, that you realized part of you had already dropped to its knees to pray, to sing, to look, to fall in love with everything and everyone again. That someone from deep inside you had come out into the sea light to raise its hands and forgive everyone in your short life you thought you hadn't. And that all along you had been singing your quiet way through the rosary of silence that held their names.
Above all, the way afterwards, you thought you had left the island, but hadn't. The way you knew you had gone somewhere into the shimmering light and come out again on the tide, as you knew you had to, as someone who would return and live in the world again. A man granted just a glimpse. A woman granted just a glimpse. Someone half a shade braver. A standing silhouette in the stern, holding the rail, riding the long waves back, ready for the exile we call a home.
Thank you, Terry. And thank you, David White. So let's spend these next few minutes. I'd like to explore a couple of things from this extraordinary poem. I'm sure that other things have landed with you, but these are some that I wanted to share and reflect on with you. And then to look a little bit about Advent itself. So as you can see, and if you're familiar with David's writings, it's a typical lament. It's a song of praise, a song of beauty, a song of unfolding. And this island, which I don't know if it came out in the chat, but the Gaelic name for it is, let me just grab it, Inishbofin. And for those of you who've been to Ireland, I know you have, Sonia, and I think you have too, Terry. I'm not sure if anyone else has, but it's a tiny island, and emphasis on tiny. It's 3.5 miles by 2 miles west of Galway, which in itself is also Western Ireland. And I make mention of that for a couple of reasons. One is that this lament is the call that is invited to us in this season, to any area within us that is a small island, cut off from that which it maybe seeks the most. And an island which, if you know Irish history, of course, has been, they estimate anything between 6,000 to 10,000 years it's been populated, but of course has been fought over, colonized, invaded. And I thought about those two themes and thought that this season of Advent is also the call to the areas in our lives that perhaps have been colonized, places that have been taken over by fear or doubt or oppression or hurt or dismay. And then, of course, as we know, the great Irish story is one of emigration. And many, many, many millions in the end emigrated from the Emerald Isle. And I saw too this poem as a call to the areas in our life where we have emigrated. Perhaps we have left or wanted to leave or had been forced to leave pockets of ourselves. The poet talks about your roots, your home. Padraig Ó Tuama, who himself is a poet and has the most beautiful podcast called Poetry Unbound. He calls it, and I love this, the parish of your life. Your home is the parish of your life. And David White in his poem says it's a short life. And we all know that. In fact, all of those of us who are getting older realize that it feels faster and faster and shorter and shorter. I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling that. But it's the small, and it's the home, and it's the rootedness that has formed us. And yet there's this call, and the call is now echoing throughout this time of the Advent, moving into the unknown, into the bigger, and carrying with us the forgiveness the work, the sand inside the oyster shell that's been going on that we haven't even perhaps realized until we do that moving out and a welcoming of it more. And I love that he uses the word send. Send here is a noun. He says the send of the wave, and that's the wave that surfers catch, the one that moves us on and moves us forward. And I love that it sounds the same as the verb to send. That this journey, this adventure, is catching the wave and seeing where it might take us. So Advent is a deeply personal and yet broad horizoned time. It's a time of these duplicities, personal and broad, political and mystical. It embraces the whole of the human experience. Those areas where we feel lack and those in which we feel full. The joy and the sorrow that at any given moment inhabit our hearts and our souls. That duality of expectancy, waiting for that which isn't, mixed with the reality of that which is, and that dynamic tension between the two. An understanding and appreciation, if appreciation is the word, maybe acknowledgement is a better one, of one's own inadequacies, and yet the Emmanuel, the communion with divine, in spite of ourselves. The 19th century American philosopher, I'm sure familiar to many of you, Henry David Thoreau, said this: the mass of humankind lead lives of quiet desperation. And Advent is the time where we can acknowledge the desert experience, like John the Baptist in the New Testament, going into the desert to prepare ourselves for that which is to come. And I read recently of a German Jesuit. I don't know if his name is familiar to any of you, but his name was Alfred Delp. And what made him extraordinary is that being German and a Jesuit, but also someone actively opposed to Nazism. And of course, he was arrested and later executed. In fact, he was executed sadly in 1945, shortly before the end of the war. And he wrote from his cell, and he wrote this. I want to quote him directly. I see Advent this year, and remember he's writing in 1944, imprisoned for his sense of injustice and activism. He said, I see Advent this year with greater intensity and anticipation than ever before. Walking up and down in my cell, 3 paces this way, 3 paces that way, with my hands in irons, and ahead of me an uncertain fate. I have a new and different understanding of God's promise of redemption and release. What I've come to realize in these recent months, especially of deep study, and I know we've spoken about it together before, but it always fascinates me that in spite of our frailties and all that goes on in us and around us, our essence is inclined towards hope. We are, as one writer put it, addicted to hope. And so this time of Advent is about windows, throwing them open and allowing grace to purify us and elevate us. And here's again that duality. It's promises to enlarge us, even in the midst of our smallness. Whatever that smallness may be, whether it be geographical or what we're feeling in our lives or in our hearts or in our souls at any given time. It's opening the window upon our feelings of powerlessness, stuckness, limitations. It's there to ready us, to clear us out, to throw open light onto our personal, cosmic, social renewal. So I've created for us, and bear with me on this, our own Advent calendar. Sadly, no chocolate. Perhaps we can share that at the end. But I wanted, and I'm going to ask perhaps Leandra or Sonia or whomever at the end to share this with you. An invitation to go on a journey in these next 28 days. And what I've done is, based on the theme of Advent, I've picked one word for each day. And it's a word for you, should you choose to reflect upon, to allow it just to sit inside you and see what may come. Perhaps if you are a photographically minded person, you might want to take a photo that captures the essence of it, or to write a note or another word, or perhaps even a poem or journal, whatever feels the most creative and the most true to who you are and how you journey. And then what we can do in the spirit of the holiday is when we come together again, so that will be the Sunday before the Christmas Sunday, is we'll unpack a gift for each other and an opportunity to share something that will have come or emerged, or an example of an open window for you, whatever that may be, whatever that may look like, whatever that may sound like. And so that is the invitation, if you would like. I won't tell you the words now. I will ask perhaps Sonia to post them somewhere so that you can each day check in. And as I say, we'll come together on the 18th. I'm creating a service now to bridge the divide between myself and you geographically, and to have an international holiday service together. But as I said, a chance to unpack that gift as a community, one for another. As I said to you, Emmanuel, Im is the tutor, recognizing the teacher within and also the teacher that we can be to one another. So I hope that sounds like an interesting invitation. So I'm going to extinguish the candle as I always do, in a blessing and a prayer for us all, for our world, for our nations, for our planet, for our environment, for our communities, for our families, for ourselves. One day.
If you like this video, please like us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click on the bell to be notified whenever we post a new video. Thank you.